57.
We're on page 57. And the truth is that I mentioned last week about the truth. I don't agree with this halakha, and therefore I'm just going to teach this to you because this is the way everyone else does it. But not because of the way you should do it.
I understand that.
I don't agree with this halakha.
So is it okay to say I'm not agree with halakha?
No, I believe there's a different way to do this halakha. Not me, I didn't wake up one morning and decide.
I wake up one morning.
Birkat al nitilat yadayim, making the blessing of al nitilat yadayim in the morning.
Oh, okay. The head.
Chet, you see chet?
Yes.
Page 57?
57? Okay.
57.
Fourth line from it.
Tzarich levarech, one must make a blessing, achar hanitila, after washing the hands. Birkat, the blessing of al nitilat yadayim. Ulechatchila, and preferably, mevarech, one should make the blessing, kodem, before shinagev yadav, he dries his hands.
What is it?
One must make a blessing before they dry their hands, preferably.
Before he?
Dries his hands. Dries, wipes.
Yes, before I-
So even this is preferably not my dad.
I'll explain in a second, because you're asking a good question. Umikol makom, but in any case, im lo birach, if you cannot make a blessing kodem before shinagev yadav, he wipes his hands. Yivarech, he should make a blessing nachar mikan, after he dries his hands. Let's pause right here. According to halakha, one has to make a blessing before you do the mitzvah. Very quickly. The question is, are you allowed to make a blessing while you're doing a mitzvah? Meaning you have not yet finished the mitzvah. And are you allowed to make a blessing once you completely finish doing the mitzvah? Two questions. We know that you must make a blessing before you do the mitzvah. Let's say you didn't do it. Can you do it while you're still doing the mitzvah? One. And two, can you do it after you do the mitzvah? So let's start with the easiest one. Which is the easiest part of the question?
During. Can you say bracha during mitzvah?
No, which is the easiest answer? After the mitzvah. Can you make a blessing after the mitzvah?
No.
No, you can't make a blessing after the mitzvah. Why?
Because
You already did the mitzvah, right? Now, can you make a blessing while you're still doing the mitzvah?
Good question.
What do you think?
I think you can.
Why?
Well, especially, let's say you start eating something, you go, I forgot to say this.
You know, it's the most classic example people bring. The problem with that example, tell them what the problem with that example is.
Now you got food in your mouth.
Is it a mitzvah to eat?
Actually, no, because if you don't, it's dangerous for you.
You're okay, that's true.
Right.
But is the blessing you make, borei minei mizonot, is that a blessing of a mitzvah? There are certain blessings which are birkot mitzvah. They're blessings on a mitzvah.
It doesn't say al chilat.
Okay, that's fine. It doesn't have to say.
Al chilat.
That's okay.
But it's like you're.
There's a better word that you're missing out. But then there are mitzvot that they're called birkot hashevach. They're blessings of like thanks or blessings of praise. To HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The general way to differentiate between these two mitzvot, two brachot. There are some brachot that say Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam. And what do they say? Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvotav. When it says that, it's a blessing on the mitzvah. When it doesn't say that, it's a thanksgiving blessing. It's a praise blessing. B'chat hodah.
So it's like, is it like the equivalent, like a $2 offering type of thing? You know?
I don't know if it's like the offering per se, but meaning it's not there to symbolize a mitzvah, but rather to symbolize just a blessing of thanks to Hashem or permission, asking Hashem to be able to eat this food. So eating food doesn't have Asher Kiddushanu Tzava V'tzivanu, except for the one time, which you mentioned, Al Achilat Matzah. By Matzah we say Asher Kiddushanu. So, interesting. Let's skip the Matzah example, but in general, let's say I'm doing a mitzvah, and the mitzvah takes a while to do. So at what point do I say, I finished the mitzvah?
After doing the act.
After doing the act. Let me ask you a trick question. Let's say you forgot to make a bracha on your tefillin beforehand. And you remember when you're halfway through your arm. Did you make a bracha on your tefillin?
Different one, no?
Yes.
Mitzvah tefillin.
Are you still in the middle of a mitzvah?
The two separate ones. You'll be behind them between my eyes, arm
Can you
the
finish
totafot
and
beinenecha.
then say again? when
You're supposed to have it in mind.
Are you supposed to take it off, it's in the bracha, put it back on?
Some would want to say that. Some say you should move it and put it back. But let's ignore those thumb twisters for a second. Okay, let's just deal right now with the basic halacha. At what point do you fulfill the mitzvah of putting on your hand tefillin?
When you finish the knot.
Is that true?
I don't know. Assuming.
Look at the blessing. Asher kidishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu
Hitatev.
le'aniach tefillin.
Or latev, that's right.
To place my tefillin.
So when you place it on,
Once you place it on and tighten the knot, you'll finish the mitzvah. Technically, if you did that and put on your head tefillin, you finish the mitzvah. This entire thing is just a custom. The rabbinic custom, the custom. And therefore, you would not still be in the middle of the mitzvah over here. So now let's go back to washing our hands. When do you finish the mitzvah of washing your hands?
Can I ask
As soon as the water hits it.
So this mitzvah is mitzvah the right. Saying bracha is rabbinic. Then why I have to take it off, say bracha, and go back again?
So I didn't tell you
So
to do
I
it.
already missed the rabbinical bracha, but I already did the right.
Say a simple answer. Once you put on tefillin once, are you done for the day? What if you want to put on tefillin in the afternoon? Are you allowed to?
Yeah, but it's not a mitzvah to put on again.
Why not? Where does it say in the Torah you only wear tefillin in the morning?
You can wear it all day, but
You have to wear it all day. That's the mitzvah.
Some,
If I daven at home,
Some
can
day,
I put
but not
tefillin
anymore.
during mincha and
Hard to
maghrib?
play
Absolutely not,
basketball.
Meir. Not at nighttime. Tefillin is a mitzvah of the day. But by mincha, the Kabbalists always wear tefillin by mincha.
you don't do it.
he's not a Kabbalist. He said that. Shabbat.
I'm learning.
budding.
I'm learning.
Meaning, we wear our tefillin. If I was in yeshiva right now, I'd be wearing my tefillin until I prayed Meir.
Right.
If I could, if I was there the whole day. But I'm not, you know. So now you have to answer phone calls and talk to people and check your emails and go on the internet. And so you can't. It's hard to have the proper thoughts while wearing tefillin.
Rabbi did not
It
do
says
that.
that you have to put it like on the side if you need to answer a phone or something like that.
Again, that's a. You shouldn't answer your phone with tefillin.
No, if you're not davening, you finish davening, you want
The phone call can wait.
study Torah or something with tefillin.
Yeah, but the Kabbalists prayed 24 hours, 25 hours.
I mean, today you'll find in the old city of Jerusalem
Yeah,
people who wear
absolutely.
tefillin all day long.
Yeah.
All day.
Okay, if you
My
need to
rabbi
go
wears
to-
tefillin all day long.
Yeah.
If you need to go to restroom,
You take it off. Then when you come out, you make a bracha again. I mean, you can make a bracha and tefillin 100 times a day, so long as you keep putting them back on. That doesn't mean every time you take it off, you put on a bracha. There are halachot about that. We'll get there.
There are a lot of holy people in Jerusalem.
Baruch Hashem.
the other question is why do we say lehaniat tefillin, not al mitzvah?
It's a famous question our rabbis have been talking about for a long time. That's why Ashkenazim make a bracha in the head tefillin. But
To cover all bases?
no, there are two different nuschaot, and we'll get to tefillin when we get to tefillin. Right now I'm talking about that
So
today.
Mansi, the Belzer doesn't do it, did not do it, Belzer.
Putting on tefillin all day.
Okay. And a couple of other groups, huge building. I didn't see anybody wearing it.
Okay. Well, you know, in Israel, you can do things you can't do in America.
Mansi.
The nature of life is different.
I've seen a couple in Yerushalayim.
You know, they wear tiny. My rabbi wears tefillin. Should I show you how big his tefillin are? This is the size of both of his tefillin. Each one of these is one of his tefillin. and these may be a little bit bigger. They're tiny. They go right here.
Who's
My rabbi's tefillin.
how do I-
That way you can wear them all day long, and they're covered. Nobody sees them. If you see the tefillin, for example, Chabad. Chabad is famous that they have big everything. They have big tefillin, big mezuzot. It's a hidu. It's a special thing to have a. The smaller something is, the more mistakes could be inside of it. Because people are very, when it's big, so the chances of mistakes happening are very, very slim. I mean,
Yarmulke, I can see. Small
So-
yarmulke, I completely-
so you have in Chabad the idea to have big things. The problem is, it's not practical to wear Chabad tefillin all day long. It's not. Unless I guess you can, but they're big. I mean, Chabad tefillin are very big tefillin. Even our tefillin, what you would call regular sized tefillin,
That's why
they're okay, but they get bulky.
If you go to 7,
You hear stories in the Gemara, but the rabbis who have tefillin and they hid them in their hand. How do you hide your tefillin in your hand? Because they're that small. The Ben Ish Chai used to wear 2 pairs of tefillin at the same time. And the question is, how do you put 2 tefillin on the same time? His tefillin were so small that they both could go in the same spot. They could both be in between your eyes in the same area where you have to put on tefillin. Now, I don't agree with the Ben Ish Chai that you should put on 2 pairs of tefillin at the same time, if anything. But these things do exist. So, when do you finish doing the bracha? Oh, yeah.
Brooklyn, in Eastern Broadway, and Kingston Avenue, Borough Park, all the places you buy. And they ask you what kind of things you need, kebab. And
Right, and it depends on size
depends
and
what
price.
you need, you can buy it anything you like. If you want kebab, you do it.
Yeah,
Right.
I've been in those stores. Yeah.
So, back to Netilat Yadayim. When did you finish the mitzvah of Netilat Yadayim?
When you dry your hands.
Why not when you finish washing your hands? The bracha is to wash my hands.
Right. But, or rather, by the time you dry, it's too late to say the bracha.
Well, he didn't say. He disagrees with you here,
Okay.
which you're right. You're right. He's wrong. You're right. Don't give up your opinion. Maran says like you, but very simply, tell me why not? If the bracha is, you commanded me to wash my hands. Why does the mitzvah not end when you finish washing your hands? I mean, why are you still able to make a bracha afterwards?
Do we have to dry our hands?
Oh, this would be the question. Do you have to dry your hands? If you have to dry your hands, then when does the mitzvah really end?
After you dry.
After you dry your hands. If you don't have to dry your hands, when does the mitzvah really end?
Just before you dry it.
Just before, after you finish washing your hands.
Okay, the
I've
opinion,
not seen people eating.
the opinion I learned is that, it's al pi Kabbalah, but that the tumah is in the water on your hands, and until you dry it
Oh,
up, your hands
that's a
won't dry.
halachic opinion, not a Kabbalistic opinion. It's a halachic opinion. I mean, sure, there's an idea of Tumah and Kabbalah, but that's a halachic. Hear what Zeb said? When you're washing your hands for bread, so the water on your hands is still tameh water.
Right.
And so, therefore, you can't technically eat the bread with tameh hands. And so, drying your hands is part of the mitzvah. What they neglect to tell you is that this is only true in the times where people used to wash once on each hand, and they used to wash with a revi'it of water, with a tiny amount of water. Because what that means is your hands were cleansed with the water, but the water didn't go anywhere because not enough water to go anywhere. It's
So
still
when
in
you
your
do
hands.
more than once, that
What
extra
happens when you do
water
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
cleans
6?
your hands.
You don't have anything tameh in your hands anymore. And even those who say you would make a blessing after you wash your hands, before you dry your hands, they would tell you you already finished the mitzvah when you wash your hands. Because you don't need to dry your hands, according to them. You understand? I agree with those people who say you can make a bracha after you wash your hands. According to them, not according to me. But even they agree that once you wash your hands more than once, you can't make a bracha anymore. And so why can you make a bracha after you dry your hands? No, I don't know why Rabbi David Yosef decides to follow the Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Israelish.
Before trying hand, he said.
That's what you do?
Yeah.
Rabbi Moshe Israelish writes that you can make a bracha
Once
after you dry your
trying
hands.
the hands, you start eating.
After you dry your hands. Everyone else disagrees with him, including all the Ashkenazi rabbis, because that's during the mitzvah. That's one thing. After the mitzvah, come on. But the Ramah seems to be consistent. He also writes by shchita. When do you slaughter an animal? When do you make a bracha? Right before you slaughter the animal. What happens if you forgot? Is animal kosher? Yeah, absolutely, of course. Because, again, like we said, the bracha is not...
It's rabbinic.
It's not what holds back the mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to say the bracha, but not to the point where if you don't do it, you don't get the mitzvah.
Also, it's a mitzvah under duress on many occasions.
What?
Slaughtering an animal is a mitzvah under duress because you were so preoccupied.
So sometimes it happens that someone would forget. Says the Rama, what happens if you forget? Maran says you forgot, big deal. Rama says no, you're carrying it on your shoulders back to your house, this big lamb. Make the bracha then. What do you make the bracha then? How do you say bracha on the shechita when you already made the shechita 20 minutes ago? So there is a question mark on the Rama of how does he even understand this whole concept of making blessings before doing a mitzvah? But that's not my problem. That's the problem for the poskim who follow the Rama. Why Rabbi David Yosef, whose whole mission statement is to go back to the Shulchan Aruch and fight like the Sephardim, why he decides here to tell you to make a bracha, even against most of the Ashkenazim and like the Rama? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But that's what he seems to say. While your hands are still wet. But then he says even afterwards you could still make a hand. The Rambam has a letter. And in the Rambam's letters he heard that people were making the bracha, like most Ashkenazim do today. Al Netilat Yadayim, when do they say the blessing?
After washing.
After washing and?
Drying.
After drying, when? Do you know when?
After Beta Kisi.
When they come to shul.
Oh,
They start off the Netilat Yadayim. What do you mean Netilat Yadayim? How do you make an Netilat Yadayim now? You washed your hands 45 minutes ago. The Rambam says, anyone who has this minhag, mitzvah devatlo. It's a mitzvah to get rid of this minhag. And to fight it, says the Rambam. This is incorrect minhag. So why Rabbi David Yosef decides to go against the Rambam? I don't know what to tell you. But let's see. Let's get reading now, just for the sake of reading it.
It's a different opinion.
וכן, אם אינו יכול לברך קודם הניגוב.
what are we on now?
Page 57, chapter chet. Set 2 sentences in. וכן אם אינו יכול לברך, and if a person cannot make a blessing, קודם הניגוב, before drying their hands, כגון, for example, שהבית אינו נקי, maybe he's in a place that's not clean, like the bathroom. יברך, he should make a blessing, לאחר הניגוב, after he dries his hands.
That's everyone holds that way, right? You can't make the blessing.
Well, nobody holds you can make a blessing in the bathroom.
Right.
The question is, not everyone agrees that you would make the blessing
Or
after.
even, some people don't even wash in the bathroom. They try to wash outside.
Right. The reason being, so you can make the blessing, but first, technically. ואפילו אם מחמד שהבית אינו נקי, how can I read this? Okay, I'm going to read it to you. It's a mistake. ואפילו מחמד שהבית אינו נקי, and if because the house is not clean, מברך על נטילת ידיים, he makes a blessing on נטילת ידיים בבית הכנסת, in the בית כנסת, יש לו על מי שיסמוך, he has who to rely on.
What does that mean? The house is not clean.
It smells, or there's children's diapers everywhere,
Oh,
or
you
any
can't say any brachot
you
in
can't make
this
any
house.
brachot. So this is technically you can make it in the beit knesset. The kol panim, but in any case, yishtadel, he should try.
People turn kids with
What? Hey, it's a problem. You should be clean. Yishtadel, they should be careful. Lasmich et habracha, to say the blessing as close laniguv to the drying at kama shefshar as possible. So it says you should try though to say the blessing as close as possible to the drying of the hands. And then he says something incredible. V'chol zen, all of this that I just told you, that you can make a blessing after you dry your hands. Linyan, this is only relating to nitilat yadayim shachari, to washing your hands in the morning. Aval suda, but washing your hands for a meal, for bread. Im lo birech kodem haniguv, if you did not make the blessing by the time you've dried your hands, lo yivarech achar haniguv. You should not make the blessing after you dry your hands. Bipnei, because shestafek brachot la'akel, because when you're in doubt as to when to make a blessing, the Rama says you can, everyone else says you can't, you don't make the blessing. If you could just give me a second, I want to look in the back. You have to hear this.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
did you say it's okay to, only for shachrit you can say a blessing after drying, but for the meals you have to say it before drying? Is that the
Rabbi David Yosef says this.
Oh.
The Halacha Beres is this. Let's turn with me all the way to the second half of the book. You remember those letters in the back of the book? Questions he was asked? It's after page 426. You want to turn, there's no English letters here, so you want to turn to page Chaf Gimel.
423.
It's going to be Chaf Gimel. Got it?
Siman
Okay.
Zion?
Yeah, Siman Zayin, it's going to say.
426. Yeah, right.
Siman Zayin, it's going to say in the middle of the page. You're going to go from Siman Vav to Siman Zayin.
426 is the last page,
Yeah, and then you're going to go to now to the second half of the book,
right?
to page Chaf Gimel. I can find it for you. If you want to pass up your books, I'll find it for you.
See, when you that page.
Oh, it's the beginning of Simon Zion.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just writing it
Okay. You see in the bottom of page Chaf Gimel 23, it says Nimukim Umkorot, reasonings and sources. In the bottom of page Chaf Gimel, where the letters start to become small, above the Shaar HaTzion.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It says Hine HaRambam. It says he quotes the Rambam, B'Sheilot V'Shuvot, and his questions and answers, Pe'er Hador, the wonder of the generation. That's the name of the Rambam's questions and answers book. It's amazing that nobody even learns these things.
Never even heard of it myself.
Right, isn't it? Nishal is asked, Odot HaMinhag, regarding the Minhag, Shenahagu B'Damasek, which they had in which city?
Damascus.
Damascus. Uchama Medinot, in a number of countries, Ma'arei HaMizrach, in the Middle Eastern countries. Shashliach Tzibur, that the Chazan, Mevarech blesses Birkot HaShachar Bevet HaKnesset. He says all of the Birkot HaShachar in the synagogue. Im Birkat Al Netilat Yadayim, beginning with the blessing of Al Netilat Yadayim. That's the minhag, they told the
We
Rambam.
still do that.
Yeah, sure.
I've been in Syrian synagogues. I remember that.
Well, even
Brooklyn.
Ashkenazi synagogues do this.
Yeah?
They
Yeah.
wash hands and then say,
When do they wash hands?
At home.
Yeah.
So they do all the brachot.
well,
Amen.
but
With,
here, the synagogue I'm
Kollel.
talking about.
that
For
it's-
Kohanim, wash their hands.
No, not by the Kohanim. In the morning, the first thing they start davening with. Baruch Hashem, Az Lat Yadai, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Shmo. I know how it works by Ashkenazi.
Right.
Okay, so V'heshiv, and the Rambam replied, Shebevadai, it is definitely bracha levatalahi, a blessing in God, a blessing in vain. Bli safek, without a doubt. The Rambam says twice, without a doubt and without a doubt. It's a blessing in vain.
Emphatic.
V'lachen, and therefore, tzarich levatla, you have an obligation to abolish this custom. Turn the page. V'afi miyeh minhag, says the Rambam, and even if you're going to tell me, oh, but it's a custom to do that. Says the Rambam, a line which I wish we could plaster it on the wall of every synagogue in the world.
Let's put it on ours.
Ki ein minhag, there is no such thing as a custom, b'davar isur, when something is prohibited.
Right.
If the custom is incorrect, you can't have a custom that's incorrect, says the Rambam. You can have a custom when it's, I don't know, my custom is to wear a yellow shirt on Thursdays. Fine, that's your custom. But if someone says, my custom is not to ever wear tzitzit, you don't have such a custom. There can't be that that's a custom. You can't come to me with a custom that goes against halakha, says the Rambam. Now, obviously, what do you find here? An opinion that is purely the Rambam's opinion. It makes 100% sense in logic and according to halakha, but that many people disagree with because of the sentimentality that has to do with with customs, and my parents did it. And my tradition. Yeah, we all became fiddler on the roof Jews. V'chen katav, and similarly was written by Rabbeinu Avraham ben Harambam. Rabbi Avraham, the son of the Rambam, B'tshuva, in one of his letters. Siman Pei Bet, in letter 82. Umishum shetzarich shivarech over li'asiyatan, because one must make a blessing before you do the mitzvah. Now you see it references down by the Aleph.
That's what to do before eating.
V'chein mevayer b'tshuvot ha-geonim. And if you look in the letters of the Geonim, these are people who lived before the Rishonim. This is like the first rabbis after the Talmud. They say the same exact thing. One must make a blessing before they wash their hands in the morning. V'chen katav ha'or zarua, and one of the Rishonim, the Or Zarua, writes this. B'shem Sefer HaMiktza'ot v'Rabbeinu Chananel, the name of Sefer Tan Rabbeinu Chananel. These are a bunch of big Rishonim. Let's go back up to that little Aleph. Okay, so you see the Rambam and his son and all these Geonim, they all say you must make a blessing before you wash your hands. If I don't care if there's a custom to make the blessing afterwards or even in the synagogue. Ulam bat besefer Tashbatz, in the book Tashbatz, Katav, he writes, Shehamaharam mir Rodenburg. He was not a Sephardic rabbi. He was a German rabbi. The Maharan of Rodenburg, Lo haya mevarech, he did not make the blessing al ntilat yadayim ad bo'o lebet hakneset, till he came to the synagogue. The Katav Azen is written Behaghat Rabbeinu Peretz, in the name of Rabbi Peretz. This is from the Rishonim. Sheken min Hag Ashkenaz. This is the custom of the Ashkenazim.
Different living conditions, perhaps?
I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You'd have like,
And if you look at the footnote
The
Bet,
houses were, it smelled, or there was,
it could be.
closed up in the winter.
Right, and I don't know a good answer to it, but it seems to be he made a blessing when he got to the synagogue. And the see source Bet, those are all the rabbis that agree with him. Rashi, all kinds of Machzor Vitri, the Manhig, the Tur. Okay.
I mean, you wash the hands,
And then make a blessing when they come to the synagogue.
keep it like that.
No, they just do whatever they need to do.
Oh, you walk with this.
ובשולחן ערוך, and in the Shulchan Aruch, כתוב, it says, בזה הלשון, in this wording, יש נוהגים, some have the custom, להמתין, to wait, לברך על נטילת ידיים, to bless על נטילת ידיים, עד בואם לבית הכנסת, till they come to the synagogue. ומסדרים אותו עם שאר הברכות, and they say it together with all of the bרכות. ובני ספרד לא נהגו כן, but in Sfarad we don't have this custom.
Here you come to so before davening, you wash your hands again. So the blessings. You can do it twice. One at home.
No, you can't make the blessing twice, only once. I'll tell you. Now he goes in for the rest of this letter to explain that even though the Rambam and Rav Avram ben Rambam said what they said, Maran must hold that the mitzvah, if it's saying Antlat Yadayim, is not a mitzvah, but rather it's a blessing of praise, and that's why you're allowed to say it even after you do the mitzvah. And he brings all kinds of proofs back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Let me tell you, the bottom line rule is, if it says Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, it's a mitzvah. If the Rambam and Rav Avraham ben Harambam tell you that something is wrong, chances are it's wrong, especially when Maran himself writes that wherever I am unclear, Maran writes this, it's in my next book, I'm having a chapter on the Rambam. Maran writes, wherever I am unclear, you should do exactly what the Rambam says. Because it's known, Maran pretty much follows the Rambam except for some rare occasions. So why would I go out of my way to go against the Rambam if I can read the Rambam into Maran and the Rambam makes sense? And the third is logically. It doesn't make sense that once I dry my hands or I go to the synagogue, I should make a blessing for something I did 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, half an hour ago, 3 minutes ago. And that's why I disagree with this entire piece. Because I'm sure that with halachic thumb twisting, you could come to any conclusion. You could even prove to me that Maran himself would say you can make the bracha. But even if you were to do that, would Maran object to making a bracha before you wash your hands? No. So then why? Why would you have to jump to the hoops if you could much rather do something the way it should be done? That's the question. I agree that you can twist your thumb, but why do you have to go there? Why does our Judaism have to work like that?
Right.
What?
Right.
Fine. But But that's a problem. That's not a good thing. It's a problem.
There probably are mitzvot that are easy to forget brachot on than others because washing hands is a routine thing during the day for other reasons. I mean,
Okay.
with soap and water maybe, or this and that. I mean,
Fine, but why would that have warrant doing the jumping through the hoops?
I guess, maybe, I don't know, maybe people forgot it too much and they needed to find some leeway to do
To
it.
do it later. Okay.
I mean, that's just
So
one-
like
that's
I told you, the
speculation.
Rambam gave a famous statement where he says that, sick people have to take medicine. If you're not sick, you shouldn't take medicine. Let the sick people take the medicine. We don't have to worry that we're going to forget. We're Tamid Chanim. We don't have to worry about these things. And in general, this is the approach. So I know you could say this and you could say that. Our rabbis give us a very important rule. This is another one of those things we should write on the wall of the things. It says, Kan derachim. There are 150 ways. The taher et asheretz. To make kosher something which is impure. Our rabbis say that if you use logic, you can convince anyone of anything. And you can bring 150 proofs that a bug is kosher. Say Chazal. Now what the rabbis were telling us is something simple. Very complicated, but it's simple. So just because you can prove it in thumb twist, doesn't mean that it's true. You have to really reach out to them and say, what is the truth? The truth is that here, why would you resort to after and after and after? So what's going to happen if I wash my hands and I don't make a bracha? Am I going to get an avera? Because according to the Rambam, if I make the bracha, I'm going to go to hell. So why would I make the bracha? Think about it that way. Maybe we should look at it that way. Now, I'm not condemning everybody to hell. What I'm saying is, the Rambam clearly feel that it's wrong. So the fact that you can make it okay doesn't save you from the wrath of the Rambam. Why would you do that? Oh, so you're an Ashkenazi, so you have a custom. Fine, take it. I'm not fighting you. But us Sephardim, so why should we go after that? We don't need to twist around. And I'm surprised at Rabbi David Yosef.
But there are general principles that are more of an umbrella. It sounds like the Rambam's making a principle which is much, yes, it applies specifically to this situation, but it applies to a very vast area.
Which is that, say it.
Which is that a custom cannot make permissible what is not.
And the Rambam's not alone either. The Rivash says the same thing. And it's only logical. It only makes sense. So let's say, I spoke about this in my class in the morning.
Such a complicated Judaism.
I spoke about this in my class in the morning. So, when you're not sure between two opinions, I don't know, the Rambam says X and Rashi says Y, and the whole Jewish community is split into two about this. So you don't want to stick your head between those two. And so you say both of them make a lot of sense. So I'm going to do what my parents did, because that's what their parents did. I want to be in the safe side that I'm following somebody. That's the way we do it. Fine. That's a minhag. But if you look at it and you say, my parents did something, but clearly what they did is either at worst wrong, or at best it's very hard to make good. And there's another way to do it that's obviously correct. That's obviously the way we always did it. So why should the fact that your parents did it hold you back from doing what's right? How is that halachically sound or logically sound?
It isn't.
It isn't. Which is why this whole notion of minhag being binding on us to the point where it's a fault, it's not okay.
It actually, in a sense, enslaves the Jewish people to kitzoniot instead of panimiot.
Right.
Fine, it has a lot of problems. But even in a purely logical sense, if it's two opinions that are valid, and you just don't know which one to choose, and everyone's split up about it, okay, so follow the way that, the path that your parents have already paved. Fine. But in a situation where it's obvious, or almost obvious, that one of them is correct and the other one isn't, so why would you follow something that, just because that's what your parents did? The Rambam's parents didn't do like that. A big deal. We are so trained that you cannot violate a minhag, to the point where we're willing to violate halachot in order to keep our minhag. That's how absurd it is. Not enough.
Especially if you don't have tradition from parents. Parents didn't keep any tradition.
Sure.
But most of rabbis says, because you're Ashkenazi, you have to follow Ashkenazi.
Well, you can choose your minhag.
Because you're
actually.
Sephardi, you have to.
But how true is that? Really? Meaning, I'm about as Ashkenazi as that my parents didn't keep Shabbat, they didn't keep kosher, so that makes me Ashkenazi?
Yeah, do you follow that minhag?
Right, you don't want to follow that minhag. So in fact, you have to. There's even worse. According to many Sephardic poskim, someone who becomes religious or converts, especially in Israel, has an obligation to become Sephardic, because the posek of Israel, even according to the Ashkenazim, is Rabbi Yosef Karo.
Right.
And therefore, outside of Israel, do whatever you want. But inside of Israel, it's like when you're part of a community, you have to be a part of that community.
Seems to run the opposite direction. Well, because how many Sephardim do we know that follow Ashkenaz customs, basically? Many.
And I'll tell you, I said this to the ladies in the morning. There are times where Sephardim are obviously incorrect. Not only the Ashkenazim aren't always wrong. The Sephardim also, we have our fair share of things that, we only do it because it's our custom. But your custom is incorrect. I can prove your custom is incorrect. So why are you holding on to it? Why are we suddenly being the custom? Let's be like the Rambam. The custom is incorrect. Let's keep moving. Let's find what's correct and keep doing that.
Rabbi, this kind of conformism comes from years of persecution and the need of a community to stick together. It's the ghetto mentality.
I agree with you. I agree that perhaps 500 years ago, the Jews were not in a place where they had much ability for free thought and new ideas, and because that wasn't the nature of our society. Today, Baruch Hashem, finally no one's trying to chase us down actively and killing us. There are people who try, but not actively. We don't feel persecuted around the world. So this is our chance. This is our chance to ease up a little bit, to figure out what's true and what's not true. Not each of us should say, we're this and we're that, and that's our custom. I'll give you an example. I make Kiddush every Shabbat morning. I make an Ashkenazi Kiddush on Shabbat morning. What's the difference between Sephardim and Ashkenazim?
Well, the melody certain isn't.
No, but I'm fine. No, it's in general. Forget the melodies, the wording. Ashkenazim say Mizmor David, then they say Im Tashiv M'Shabbat Aglecha, then they say V'Shamu V'nei Yisrael Shabbat, then they say Zachor Et Yom HaShabbat L'Kadsho, and they finish Aken Baruch Hashem Et Yom HaShabbat V'Kadsho. It's the end of Zachor. They say Sabrim Ranan, and then Bo Pnei Gefen. The Sephardim do the same exact thing. Mizmor David, Im Tashiv M'Shabbat Aglecha, V'Shamu V'nei Yisrael Shabbat, and the end of Shamu V'nei Yisrael Shabbat, they skip Zachor, and they say the last half of the sentence of Zachor. They say Aken Baruch Hashem Et Yom HaShabbat V'Kadsho.
Right.
And they say half a pasuk. According to the Gemara says every pasuk which Moshe Rabbeinu did not put a period there. I mean, you only put periods where Moshe Rabbeinu put periods. You are not allowed to say half a pasuk as part of your prayers. You can't go up to the Torah and finish halfway through a pasuk. You have to finish at the end of the pasuk. It's a halakha. We follow Moshe Rabbeinu's end of the pasukim.
Are all the pasukim when you take out the Torah full pasukim?
Always. Always.
Because it seems like there's pieces from different places.
Maybe of chapters, but not of pasukim, not of verses themselves. And so according to the Ashkenazim, they're right, they follow halakha. You cannot just say, Al-Ken Baruch Hashem. Al-Ken means, therefore, Hashem bless Shabbat. Therefore what? You skip the whole paragraph where it says, why, therefore? The Sephardim are wrong. So you ask the Sephardim, so why do you do it? What do they tell you?
Minhag.
It's a minhag, it's our custom. That's how we do it. Our rabbis knew, and then suddenly we sound like I don't know, Hasidim. I don't know what we sound like. We have to make sure we don't do that. We still say Zachor, or don't say Al Ken Barach, but one of the two.
Well, if you study halacha like this, you realize that there's a lot of areas that are not so straightforwardly defined, and to get to that place where you choose is not so easy.
It's not so easy. It's true. It's not so easy.
And
I'll
then
give
some
an
of these
example.
things are running over hundreds of thousands of years.
Sure. So let's finish this paragraph over here. Mi she'eino yachol litol shtei yadav. Someone who can't wash his hands, both his hands. 57. We're back to page 57. Let's go back to... Sorry, we're in Tet on 57. Mi she'eino yachol, somebody who is unable, litol shtei yadav, to wash both his hands, the shacharit or the suda, for the morning or for a meal. Give me an example. What kind of person would be unable to wash both his hands?
Someone who has a lame arm, God forbid.
Okay, let's say someone has a limb, or Chalila, he doesn't even have an arm.
Right.
Or give me a less extreme example.
In a sling or in a cast.
Apparently someone's in a cast, let's say. They can't get a wedge. They can't. So what does the person do?
Have someone else wash for him. I mean, have him.
Well, he'd have to wash his hands, right? Let's say he washes one hand. What bracha does he make?
How can he wash?
What?
How can he washed one hand?
He's able to use the other hand.
Oh, okay. What if he can't?
So then someone else would wash his hand for him. It's the original minhag is someone else would wash your hand for you. The Yemenites still do that. So when I go to events like Moroccan events and things like that, they come and wash my hands for me. I'm a rabbi. They bring me a bowl and there's like a whole fancy thing. It's a minhag to do this. So you mean you can wash your hands by someone else washing your hands, fine? Then they can only wash one hand. The person can only wash one hand. What bracha does he make?
You have to make the whole thing?
Can he say Al Tilat Yadayim?
There's only one yad.
He only has one yad. So what is he doing? Does he make Al Tilat Yad?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Or does the intention count?
There's no separate prayer for that. Nothing in the book.
Also going to put
One
on the
yard.
penalties.
That means
No,
the whole
help.
thing?
Let's look inside. Kagon, for example, Shiesh lo gevis. He has a cast. Gevis is Hebrew for cast. O tachboshet, or what do you call that? A sling. Al yado ha'achat, on one of his hands. Tachboshet can also be a band-aid, like something protecting a wound. Ve'no yachol artiv, and he's unable to wet hayad, his hand, b'mayim, in water. He can't get it wet. O kagona, for example, misha en la'eliyad achat, a person only has one hand. Mevarech al tilat yadayim. He makes a blessing of al tilat yadayim. Ben shnotei yadav shachit, whether in the morning, uven shnotei yadav lesuda, or whether for a meal. The reason being that when our rabbis make a nusach for a blessing, you're included in that blessing even if the whole blessing doesn't apply to you. You don't make up your own brachot based on the situation which you're in. Rather, there's a set way to make a blessing, and that's the way we make the blessing.
When the Beit HaMikdash was standing, was there a bracha on washing feet? Was it a mitzvah to wash your feet?
Interesting question. I've seen that spoken about in the poskim. I don't remember the answer to the question. I've seen it mentioned.
Because they used to wash the feet before entering the Beit HaMikdash. And of course the Muslims still do that.
You can look in the Rambam. You can look in the Rambam, and probably he would mention it.
Not only wash your hands, wash the feet too.
Hmm?
Wash the feet.
Yeah, but when before entering the Beit HaMikdash, they used to wash the feet.
Yeah, they kino.
You don't have place wash the feet here. you say.
Outside there, yeah.
And for the Kollel, if he has a chasm, you said that the actual mitzvah is only putting tefillin to here.
It could be.
Here?
From what I've seen, most of the time, the cast goes pretty high up. Depends what's broken. It's just a wrist, and it's not. But if there's room to put tefillin here, then they will put tefillin here. If not,
And tie it here.
yeah. I mean, you could tie it here also. It doesn't make it. He's not going to get a mitzvah for. If not, I don't want to go on. I remember once seeing such a situation in which a person would only put on a head tefillin. Because they are two separate mitzvot. They are two separate mitzvot. Even according to us, we only make one
Can't
bracha.
you put it on the other hand?
That's a question. It's a question that's brought down.
Just like lefties.
According to the Kabbalists, lefties have to wear tefillin on both hands.
Really?
We don't.
Does anybody do that?
I've seen people do it.
That was, because I'm left-handed.
Make,
Kind of strange.
it's not practical. I'll tell you why the Kabbalists do it. According to halakha, lefties put their tefillin on their right hand. That's very simple. That's what should be the halakha. The Kabbalists have a whole thing about right and left, and you probably know this better than me. And so therefore, even though it's his right, but it's really the world, I guess, the whole thing. So they hold it's better to just put tefillin on both hands. I'm not a Kabbalist, like I told you before. I value where the Kabbalists are coming from, but if someone were to ask me what the halakha is, let's follow the poskim. So I get the two hands, so you have 3 pairs of tefillin, and one time I don't know how this is.
Some people not that level.
Some people are in that level. Who knows?
Well,
Some would say it's not even a level. Who knows? You know, everyone would have their own.
2 arms and 1 head thing?
one head.
Hopefully, there's not 2 heads, right? That's what that would be.
So right-handed cannot put tefillin on the right hand?
Doesn't seem like it.
So you could put Rabbeinu Tom on one hand and Rosh on the other.
According to the Mekubalim, that wouldn't work.
And 50 pairs of tzitzit.
So Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin, if someone has the custom to do it, fine. the Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin, you do not fulfill the mitzvah of Tefillin with Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. If you are in a desert island and you only had Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin, that wouldn't count as a mitzvah of Tefillin.
But the only difference is the order of the scrolls, right? Inside
The order of the scrolls invalidates Tefillin for us. To the point where Rabbi Vadi Yosef was of the opinion that Ashkenazi Tefillin, we're allowed to, Sephardim, Ashkenazim, they could use the same Sefer Torah as the same everything we could use. The only difference is by Tefillin. By Tefillin, Ashkenazim have extra things in the Tefillin Jalet in order to satisfy one opinion of the Taz. And for Sephardim, that makes the Tefillin entirely not kosher. And so for Sephardim, they would actually not be allowed to wear those Tefillin. I don't know if what Hasidim do. I don't know if Hasidim also do this or not. I'm not holding. I just saw once the writings of Rabbi Vadi Yosef that he recommends you can share everything except for Tefillin. By Tefillin,
Can you check what Chabadniks do? Because I have Chabad.
I can check. I don't know what to tell you. I can check. I'm of the opinion that if someone wears Tefillin, there are bigger things to fight about, But at the end of the day, if you were to go buy a new pair of Tefillin, according to Chacham Ovadia, but clearly according to them it's okay, right? So there has to be validity to their opinion. But if you were to go buy Tefillin again, I would tell you it's very important to buy Tefillin that are the same way. I would not to the point where I would tell you go buy new Tefillin now, but in the situation where that would ever happen, it's important to buy the correct kind of Tefillin. And again, these are all differences in opinions, which means we're not coming to invalidate somebody else. Just for us, when we have a way to follow halachot, you have to, at the end of the day, follow what you believe is correct.